it's valuable and it cannot be held by physical hands, it's probably worth holding on to. This is Immaterial Treasures. I'm your host, Danfy Parker. Thank you for tuning in.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's afternoon here. Today is my birthday, and I'm here with my father, Jerry Wallace. It's a very special day for me to be here with him, as we've been on quite the roller coaster in this last few months. So I'm very happy to spend this day with him and to be able to get some time to go over some of our memories and just the journey that they've been on, even recently, and how their lives progressed. Dad, what do you want to share with everyone in regards to where you are today over the last 2 months?
Well, for sure, it's been we call it the journey through the valley of the shadow of death, familiar scripture found in Psalm 23, and came very unexpectedly as I'm a bus driver. I went to the doctor to do my physical for my license and mentioned to him at that point in time, that was in November, a couple months ago, that I was experiencing a few kind of discomfort in my stomach and feeling like a tension or anxiety or something. And he said, well, Jerry, let's do some tests. And so we ran an x-ray on my chest and on my stomach ultrasound. And he phoned me up just about a day later after we did the x-ray. And he said, Jerry, we better come to the office and we need to talk. And so I was in the office, and he says, your wife in the waiting room? And I said, yeah. And while he went to get her, I was sitting there thinking, okay, what's this all about? And he brought her in, he sat it down, he said, the x-ray, we found a spot on your lung, and by all outward, looks like you might have lung cancer. Well, you could have lined us up against the wall and shot us with a shotgun. That's what the effective was. And from that whole process of that x-ray, then we went to more scans, and then they found that the cancer that they thought was in my lung had actually spread down into my bowels and my kidneys. And then we went to the hospital in Ottawa, and surgeons came and talked to us about possible surgery, and looked like I had an infection and one of my bowels had perforated and there was cancer everywhere. And they said, there's really nothing we can do for you. And just kind of go home and prepare for the end. And that was just like in a short time. It was like, wow, just from this spot on my lung to all of a sudden this death sentence on me. And we were like, wow, just very traumatic, hoping that our children were going to be able to make it home and in time before I actually passed away, making funeral arrangements and burial plot and all those things. Just kind of a very shocking journey in the midst of this valley. This valley got so dark and seemed very steep. And yet we found that our Lord, he said, I will be with you in this valley. And we found him to be that for us. So here we are. We're still in this journey, not too sure the actual results. We've had some sunlight along the way. Actually, their cancer doctor has phoned us up and wants us to come back into the Ottawa hospital and do some more tests and check us out. So we're kind of a hopeful point in time of our journey right now. So that's kind of the capsule of where we are on this whole journey right now, Amy.
Yeah, and well, just to fill in on that a bit, I was in Ghana with Danfy on our vacation, and I was a bit hesitant to even go on this vacation based on Dad's prognosis, but we were kind of in a waiting zone and waiting on a biopsy result and just not really sure, when treatment was going to start, what they were going to say. So we just went ahead with the trip anyway, thinking, this was the best time for us. And when I was there, I think it was about 12 days in, well, maybe 10 days in, I get the message from my mom that Dad's been admitted to the hospital with the infection, the perforated bowel, and basically not really sure if he was going to make it over the course of a few days. So you can imagine the stress I was feeling being that far away and seeing pictures of my family gathering together at the hospital. And so, of course, Danfy and I made plans for me to take a flight back, and I still had to wait 2 days, but it did come together perfectly, and Danfy's sisters helped me out a lot with that. They made the arrangements for me and picked me up and brought me winter clothes and everything like that so I could make the transition, and really grateful for all the support I've had, just even from our church, praying, and people and friends and community. And we've had tremendous support from the Harmony Church, and just people bringing meals and coming to visit. It's been a constant influx, and everyone's coming with a prayer and word of encouragement or blessing, and except for the doctors, of course. We had a few moments there with the my brother and I just sitting there while the doctor offered my dad assisted suicide. That was an interesting moment, none to say the least. But this is the great nation we live in, right? You can kill yourself or kill your baby. Freedom, right? But anyway, thank God we have a different view of life. And my dad is here, doing quite well. Now he's home. Thank the Lord. Starting to eat a little bit. And that was one of my prayers on my flight on the way back. I said, Lord, please, I want to spend my birthday with my dad. So I feel that's an answer to prayer, and thankful.
Yeah, we're so thankful. It's wonderful. Been the journey that we've been on. I've had such clarity of my mind and absolutely no pain. The antibiotics, they really took care of the infection in my stomach. And just wonderful, wonderful privileges and opportunities in the hospital to talk to doctors and share our faith and pray. I pray with them. I had 8 surgeons in the room, all crowded in the room, and they all bowed their heads and we prayed with them. I'm so proud of our medical field and what they've accomplished, and their bedside manner was just wonderful. I have no complaints about the way they, mind you, they're very technical and they give you just basically what they believe is happening, and they're not of a faith factor, and they're to give you the hard, cold facts. And yet we as believers in the Lord Jesus Christ and a miracle worker, we always believe that God is able and he can heal and bring renewal and strength and hope way beyond what doctors can say. And yet there's a point where you have to there is a place where you have to, the realism of what they've given to you and compute that. It can be a difficult thing to deal with, and how do we bring that all out? I talked to my doctor, the one that talked about suicide, and yet he asked me some questions. He sat down one day and he said, well, what about sickness, and what about war in this world that we live in, and how do you deal with that as a person of faith? He said, there can't be a God if these things are allowed in our world. And I was so glad that he mentioned those things, because he gave me a wonderful opportunity to share where sickness has come from, all because of our choice. And if you think about Adolf Hitler, and it was a man's choice. War didn't come about because of itself. It was a man's choice for power and greed that brought about the loss of thousands and thousands of lives and devastation because of choice. And so God gives us that choice to love him and serve him, because he wants us to love him. And we can choose to go our own way. We can choose to decide to do our own thing and face the consequences of those things. And so it is our journey here that I said to him, he said, ask me, I said, do you have questions? I said, well, yeah, I have questions. I've asked God, why why me? What did I do wrong? And, why would this happen to me? And as a person of faith, I think we're still allowed to ask God questions. We're not zombies going around without any kind of reasoning. And he looked at me in surprise and he said, "Really? You really have questions as a person of faith? I didn't think a person of faith would be able to even question." The psalmist, if you read in the Bible there, he calls out many times and, he, "Deliver me speedily, Lord," and why, and where do I go? And we, as our Christian walk, we're in a constant journey asking God where and what and why. And yet there's the faith comes in and says, "Lord, your will, your way." Ultimately, we trust in him and everything that we've done. And we've had that in 40 years of ministry that we've traveled. So it's been this journey through the valley of the shadow of death has been a dark, difficult journey at times. Bonnie and I, my wife of 40 years, we've held each other and cried and prayed and hoped and believed and trusted. It's been a difficult time at times, and yet the Lord has opened up so many windows of opportunity to talk to people and share. And our hospital room became a place, a sanctuary of prayer, people coming in constantly and praying with us. It has just been, in one way, very, very exciting. Very, very exciting. So
that brings me to some of the questions I wanted to ask in regards to this journey. And though we are praying for God to extend your life and to give you many more years to do a miracle, that's what we're asking and we're praying. We also want to reflect on what the journey has been, where it began, how did we get here. So I kind of wanted to go back to the beginning when you first received the Lord. Go way back. I know we have a testimony from my grandfather coming to the Lord when he was 40 years old. Poppy, we call him. That's Dad's dad. And that was a big part of your story. Yeah, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the early days, the first years of calling and how that kind of unfolded for you.
Well, for sure, Amy, it's been an exciting journey, and we see God's hand, extended mercy extended to us so wonderfully over the years. Way back, I was about 12 years old when my father was an alcoholic and came to the Lord through a very wonderful transformation in an alcohol-ridden home, and my mother praying and going to Sunday school, and us being picked up, a little Sunday school teacher taking us to Sunday school, and me coming home from Sunday school with these stories of Jesus, and I really hadn't known too much about him. My mother hadn't shared. And so it was kind of an exciting journey beginning to share with my father, and he eventually coming to the Lord and going to a little Methodist church, bringing us there. But as a young person growing into my teen years, there's that's what my dad did, and this is what I'm going to do. And I was going on my own way. I was working as a draftsman at the Ottawa Hydro, and I had my job and my car, and I just wanted speed, and in other words, not speed you inject, but speed down the road fast with this little black beauty Falcon I had. And that was my dream, to just make more money and get a faster and faster car, perhaps race someday. And in the midst of that, I had a vivacious appetite for reading. My mother, when we were children, she started taking us to the library to get books. And so we would go to the library every couple of weeks, and we'd get a bunch of books and bring them home. And I began to devour stories of adventure and World War II escape stories, and everything that I could find of adventure. And I came across a story of a man by the name of Nate Saint. And he was a airplane pilot into the jungles of Ecuador, South America, and he was with a team of 5 missionaries, and they went in to try and help these headhunters and killers and try and share the gospel with them. And this Nate Saint was an inventor. He loved to build things and they would drop him in the middle of a jungle with a broken down airplane and say, parachute in there and get that thing running. And it just captivated me that this was a Christian man. This was a man of adventure, a man that is so capable to survive on his own and fix this airplane that had crashed. And the only way he could get out is if he built the airplane and it flew it out himself. I was just so captivated. I thought, how can this be? I always thought a Christian, if you were going to serve God, you had to be either a preacher or a teacher or, something. And here was this great adventurer man, along with his other buddies that were in the jungle. And I thought, is it possible that this Christian life could be just more than going to church and, singing in the choir or teaching Sunday school? Not that those things were wrong or dull, but to me as a young man, I was just hungry for adventure and searching. And so in my bedroom one night, when I was about 19 years old, I had become trouble. I was starting to drink and going to parties and still feeling unfulfilled. And I bowed my head right in my bedroom by myself and simple little prayer, say, Lord Jesus, can you transform my life? Can you change me? Can you give me the longing of my heart that I'm looking for? And that was the beginning. He walked in my bedroom, my little room up there at the top in Greeley, Ontario, and my life was transformed and changed. And then began the exciting journey that we ventured out on. That was the kind of the initial beginning, Amy, and there's more to the story.
Interesting to hear it in a different way. Just thankful for that day that came for you and even for our grandparents, because they paved the way for us in many ways. Mm-hmm. We didn't really come from, there were Christians kind of here and there in our background on your side, but not really a strong faith background. More of a kind of nominal Anglican United Church. I'm not even sure. Great-grandparents, but I don't think Nanny's father, not sure he had any faith.
No, we came from probably a very alcoholic-driven background. All my relatives on both sides were heavy drinkers. My father was a heavy drinker, drank every night after work, and then every weekend was spent in alcohol. So that was the beginning of my journey. And then I was working at the hydro, still as a young man, and I'd shared with my boss. I said, I've had a change in life, and I think God's calling me. And he, of course, he didn't understand. I said, I think I want to go to Bible school. And he looked at me and was like, Jerry, I was really kind of training you to be the new director here in the drafting office, and you've got great desire and skills, and hopefully you'd stick around. And I said, well, I'm going to leave. I'm going to quit my job and go to Bible school, which was a huge adventure for me. I didn't have money saved up. And it was difficult on my father because he had always hoped I would have a secure job like that with a pension and all those things. And so when I left to go to Bible school, it was a difficult journey for him to lean on the Lord for me. Sometimes when we do things, our parents have a struggle with it because they know that they're going to have faith because of what our children are doing, as we have had with our 6 children and all their different adventures, including Amy here. Precious what God has done in her life. So I went to Bible school for 3 or 4 years, and God began to direct me into evangelism, which I never thought. What happened was there was an organization called Child Evangelism Fellowship, and a lady came around to my home because my mother used to hold in her kitchen what was called good news clubs for children in the neighborhood. She would have story time, a little song time right in her kitchen with these handful of little children. And she would say, Jerry, I need you to draw a picture for me for my club, because I had artistic kind of cartooning ability. And I would go, oh, okay, Mom, what do you want me to draw? And she was always saying to me, Jerry, the Lord's got a plan of I believe he wants you to work with children. Why don't you go and coach a baseball team? And I was like, Mom, coach a baseball team? I just wanted to drive my car up and down the road and look at pretty blonde-haired girls. She always had this vision of me working with children, and so I would draw her a little picture. But then the Lord began to develop this artistic ability, and while I was not too sure if it was in Bible school or wherever, I traveled to a huge Sunday school convention they held in Detroit in Cobo Hall. Huge convention with thousands and thousands of people would come and learning about how to do Sunday school. And in that convention, there was a man by the name of Sam Butcher. And if you're familiar with the Precious Moments figurines, those porcelain things, the little dolls with the big eyes, teardrop eyes, you can buy them in the China store. Well, he was the inventor of those little dolls, or these little porcelain things, and he was a Sunday school worker. And he was doing a workshop in this convention about how to do cartooning and how to do what they called chalk drawings. So I was like fascinated. Whoa, I want to go to that. I want to learn something about that. And he did his workshop, and then after the workshop, I hung around kind of like, a fly, wanting to talk to him, learn anything more, or is there something else any tips? He said, well, young man, how would you like to help me? I have to go move to another room. How would you like to help me pick up my equipment and take all this stuff, and we can talk as we go? And so I got to hang around with Sam Butcher for a little while down the hall and into the next room where I helped him to set up. And he taught me how to do some cartooning that I have done for 40 years and probably have drawn cartoons for thousands and thousands and thousands of children in our ministry, all because of Sam Butcher. He went on to become a multimillionaire, and I didn't get to do that, but I've had a wonderful privilege.
Treasures in heaven.
Yeah, treasures in heaven. It was one of those God moments and just those intersections of time that only God can do. And so I started traveling on my own, doing children's ministry with child evangelism. I traveled across the north all by myself, going into backyards and it was kind of like Pied Piper. And back in that day, I would go into the city streets and town streets and say, hey, kids, I'm going to be in the park drawing pictures of cartoons. You want to come down? Probably be arrested today. But I would be walking down the road with maybe 15, 25 children all following me like, the Pied Piper, the story. And we'd all gather around a picnic table, and I'd pull out a flip chart Bible story and draw some cartoons, and kids would be on the grass everywhere. And then I'd say, I'm coming back tomorrow. Bring your friends. And just incredible opportunities back in that time. Parents very trusting, okay, go to the park, get out of my eyes type of thing. So that began, and then there was from that moment in time, there was a lady that I was staying with, and she said, there's this man has died. He was a traveling children's evangelist for many, many years, and he has left his equipment to someone in a similar type of work like you. And she said, I think you should take over for him. Well, I was only young, probably, I don't know, I was in my 20s. And I thought, well, whatever. I didn't know anything about that. And on that journey in the north, I was traveling, staying in a man's home, and there was a gospel concert in town where a family was singing. They were traveling through, called the Singing Edwards. And I'd heard about them and known about them. And so I thought, hey, that would be great. And the guy had a particularly pretty daughter that I thought maybe I could take with me. And so I took her to the gospel concert. And then I saw one of the singers up on the platform. She was a beautiful blonde-haired girl. Wow. She had a black dress on, one of those straps around her neck, with a ribbon on it or something. And her hair was so beautiful. And playing a guitar. And she was up there singing with all her might, loving Jesus. And I just thought, oh, I've made a terrible mistake. I've brought a date with me tonight. How do I get rid of this girl? I want to find out about this girl that was singing. Her name was Bonnie Edwards. And so I think I brushed off my date. I told her to go get me a Coke or something so I could go and talk to Bonnie. Of course, she was a singer, part of a group, and I was just another one of the crowd and didn't really kind of make any connection. But what happened, she left to go in her motorhome and she disappeared. And I thought, oh man, I want to see this girl more. How can I make more of a connection?
Oh, you were going to see this girl a lot more.
And her little sister, April Joy, she was just a bubble talking 90 miles a minute. And I said to her, hey, I've never seen the inside of your motorhome. Think you could take me out to show me around? And, oh, yeah, that was me. Oh, yeah, come on, follow me. And so I got to go out, and there Bonnie was sitting out there in the motorhome. And I think I punched her in the shoulder or something, some kind of dumb thing. And then her sister said to her later, I think he likes you.
April,
and
matchmaker.
Bonnie was like, oh, no. And so through that initial event, guess what? We got connected again, and
40 years later,
we've been married for 40 beautiful, wonderful years. She has been a faithful partner. We traveled across the country. We built a big school bus and made it into a motorhome, and took all our kids, including Amy, out of school and homeschooled them and traveled through the States and Canada and been just one of those dreams that you thought never would ever come true. So that's been a part of the journey so far, Amy.
Yeah, it's interesting for me to hear it again. And that's what part of this is about, just to go over some of the early days. And I'm just thankful for technology, and we can have these conversations and share them with others. It's a real blessing. All right. Yeah, so from the early days, meeting Mom, what made you decide you wanted to have 6 children? Or did that just happen? Oops.
Well, actually, some were very perfectly planned, whether you believe it or not. We were on our honeymoon in Quebec. We went to a ski resort. You're not going to believe this, but it actually happened. And wonderful honeymoon, Auberge, Black Rome, a little touch of Sweden in the middle of Quebec, a very romantic place. And so we went out one day we were going shopping, and, we kind of in the shopping mall. She went one way and I went another. And then I was back before the days of cell phone when you phone each other in the mall and find out where you are. I went searching for her and I couldn't find her anywhere. And I found her, ladies, you're going to think is very interesting. I found her in the baby section on my honeymoon. Listen, this is on our honeymoon. I found her in the baby section looking at little girl dresses on our honeymoon. And I looked at her and I said, what are you doing here? And she said, oh, isn't this cute? Look at these little dresses. And I grabbed her by the hand. I said, let's get out of here. What do you think we're not going to have kids for a long time. Well, guess what?
Little did you know.
10 months later,
it began.
It began.
The baby factory began. Speaking of the baby factory, we have one of the other siblings here today, Andrew. So he's gonna join us for a little bit and ask Dad a few questions and share. So here's Andrew.
I just wanted to go over some of the memories that I treasure growing up. Kind of got a context there of our adventurous upbringing. It didn't stop there. Kept going. High levels of intensity. He was a good father. Cared for us. Wanted us to have a good childhood. Lots of fun. It was important. So we did have lots of fun. Made some nice rinks for us growing up. Read us lots of stories. I just want to ask you how you got into the Sugar Creek Gang stories. And
yeah, the Sugar Creek Gang books were like little novels for young boys, and kind of there was 5 little boys, I think, in the gang, and they all kind of went through these little adventures. There was little stories of, why did this happen, and they tried to solve the mystery. And so every night we would get a sugarcane book out with my boys, Andrew and Daniel, and not too sure how old Matthew was at that time, but we'd start reading these. And I guess they came from my days of reading the mysteries and the adventure novels whenever I was a teenager, and had a great still love for that, and wanted to sew that into my boys. It was kind of one of those, every night you would get to this cliffhanger in the next chapter and say, well, tomorrow we're going to read the story. No, Daddy, don't. No, one more chapter. Don't stop now, Daddy. It was always that difficult. Well, we have to wait till tomorrow. And then it was like, okay, sure, Crick Gang time. Everybody get into bed. And it was kind of a feed time for, get your children to sleep at nighttime. Parents always have that struggle. Reading to your children is so important. If you're a parent out there, a young parent, read to them actual stories and adventure novels. We read missionary story after missionary story, really adult Mary Slessor and Amy Carmichael, and fed into them the mystery and the adventure of serving God on the foreign field here and there. So that was poured into us. We had a great time, Andrew.
Yeah, so I always look back in those days and think, that's a good thing. You want to have a lot of positive stories in your mind and giving you inspiration. People don't want to be controlled; they want to be inspired. So that's something you want to do and did well. And I've lived a life full of adventure, maybe a little too much, but that's okay.
Yeah, Jennifer,
we'll come back around.
Jennifer,
find our equilibrium.
Jennifer, our oldest daughter, she said, Dad just never read like little stories to us. It was always some person marching through the jungle, fighting off jaguars, saving little babies. They weren't simple little stories. They were always filled with danger and adventure. And today she's way off in the north teaching and quite an adventure of her own.
Got to have a good story to tell. That's what we did. Told lots of good stories. And the rinks, those were good too. Never forget that. Real community event. Everyone would come and get lots of exercise, healthy, appreciate the winter lives up here. Sometimes I wonder why people live up here, but get lots of fun outside, and we did it. So
our rinks were Melody, my daughter, the youngest daughter. She said one day, Dad, can you make me a little rink? So we started with this tiny little rink, and then the boys kind of saw and said, hey, bigger rink, bigger rink, bigger rink. And every year it grew and grew and grew until on Saturday, the community would be coming into our backyard. There'd be all kinds of people I hardly even knew who they were, and they were on our rink skating. It was a wonderful privilege. Awesome time we had.
Remember that, I remember the wooden slide you made, Dad, at the parsonage. Built this wooden slide for the winter time. Was there ice on it? Did you put ice, like water down there to make it icy? And then we had our sleds and our crazy carpets and we just fly down there.
Yeah, it was probably today people would outlaw type of thing in the backyard because it was right up at the edge of the garage roof. You guys climbed up this clambery little rickety ladder to slide down this thing. It was about 30 or 40 feet long, and went sliding out into the back.
Yeah, I don't think Trudeau would let us have that.
Probably. I had a picture of it, and I thought, oh, dear Lord. It's a wonder the thing didn't crash and kill one of my children or something.
Right. You thought about it.
Made out of 2x4s and plywood and propped up. These little wee kids.
What I think is more dangerous is the slides that we went to at Camp Livingston, going down 40, 50-foot hills.
Oh, well, those big inner tubes.
2 or 3 people on them with the tubes flipping around. I'm surprised there weren't more broken necks and backbones.
Every winter we went to, we did a family retreat in a place called Camp Livingstone near Ayers Cliff, Magog, Quebec. We'd all pack up all the 6 kids, and we had to have a trailer for enough winter clothes and mitts and boots and drag them all there. We'd go for a whole week, and all these families would come together, and they would slide down this big tubing hill. It was just a wonder nobody got concussions, and I think probably did. Probably did.
Report them.
I went down one time. I think I had a bunch of kids on top of me on this big inner tube, and we went flying, and I crashed and hit my back on the ground. I thought, oh, what have I done, Lord? Thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. I had just done that.
Those hills were definitely temptations for his.
Oh, we had some good times, Andrew. It's been
Yeah.
been a real treat. I have a little saying: no reserve and no regrets. Giving everything we had for our children, our lives, and for the Lord. I look back and I have no sorrow for. Well, we all have regrets for some things we should have said and should have done, and maybe more. But great days, opportunities. I had a doctor talk to me just in the hospital. He said, I told him about my adventure with the bus. He said, I was thinking about getting a motorhome and taking my children out and going for traveling. And I said, how old are your children? He said, 14 and 17. I said, oh, doctor, do it now. Do it now. If you're going to do it, because time is going to be gone and they're going to be doing their jobs and they're going to have this and that. And they'll say, no, mom and dad. So when you have the time with your children, spend it, live it, do it. Take the time, make a slide, make a snowman, do it, go out there, enjoy life while you have it.
I remember the one other memory I have of when we were at the parsonage, which is when you were a pastor for a little while, the Holiness Church. You dumped flour all over the table, the dining room table. Probably I don't even know how much flour. And you put the little race cars, drive the race cars through the flour like it was a desert or something. It was like controlled chaos. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what Bonnie thought about the whole episode. I think we maybe had
She's rolling her eyes.
We maybe had a tablecloth, but I thought,
I don't think there was a tablecloth, but maybe I forget that part.
I think it was wintertime, and I thought, we don't have a
Kids
sandbox.
were going squirrely.
We didn't have a sandbox, so I thought, let's just get like a half a pound of flour here and just dump it on there. And we got out the little dinky toys and we made our little roads and
little race cars
and all through there. And, it was a very controlled play, teach your children to be controlled. It wasn't like go in there and have a free for all, because you want to have a free for all, you don't play. That's just control. Teach your children control. I build blocks or something with my children, and we used to play with Legos for hours with my children. Love playing Legos. Building calls a thing. But when we played the Legos, it wasn't with the intent to smash them and destroy it after. It wasn't like, okay, we've just made a car, now let's smash it to smithereens. It was a construction. Look at it and say, wow, look at this beautiful thing. We can take it apart and make something else, but there wasn't the intent. And kind of a little alarmed at sometimes of our teaching, maybe our shows that are so full of destruction and blowing things up and, build something and watch it blow up. There isn't a good movie anymore without something being blown to smithereens or a car crashing off a cliff. I always think, that was such a beautiful car. Oh, dear. My heart was filled full of sorrow.
The whole thing was just computer animated.
Yeah, perhaps.
From beginning to end.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does reduce your value of things when we just so quickly destroy.
We had another event that we did because we tried to make Sunday a very sacred day. And so we had a whole cupboard full of books and games and pencil crayons and everything kind of thing. And it was only to be used on Sunday. It was the Sunday cupboard. So after church on Sunday, even, I think we even had...
I don't remember that. Jen probably does because she remembers everything.
Yeah, I think we even had Sunday cereal. Today we can have Sugar Crisp or, Captain Crunch today because it's Sunday. We just wanted to make it a very special day. And then would be like Sunday afternoon. Wow, we get these special coloring books. They weren't just the normal everyday books.
It was probably Mom's idea.
Yeah, it was very controlled. Wait till I tell you the story about the cookies. We had, 6 children, and cookies were kind of a
didn't last long.
Disappearing act. So we would buy these cookies, a big box of cookies, and say, there's so many cookies you can have a day or whatever. And we put them in like one of those little microwave things you buy, stands, with a top drawer, and there's cupboards at the bottom. And so I actually put a lock on the bottom of the drawer or bottom doors and put the cookies in there. And came back a few days later, and like the cookie bag was like 3/4 gone. And I thought, I pulled out the drawer, and then I looked, and unlocked the doors down below, and I thought, how did the cookie, there's no possible way that those cookies, the children couldn't get in there. There's no way that they could get in. Oh, but there was a way. They pulled out the drawer, the top drawer, they pulled it all the way out and reached their hands down through the drawer into and found the bag of cookies and opened the bag inside the cupboard doors and began to pilfer out all those cookies, probably feeding, I don't know who came up with the idea, maybe Andrew.
Probably Andrew.
Maybe Andrew, and then it was just Jennifer, give me one, give me two, and Amy was like, well, yeah, I can have one too, and so the bag of cookies that was supposed to last for a week would be gone in, a day or two, till I found out their plot and plan. All right, we would line all the children up. All right, who's guilty? Who'd come up with this devious activity? And of course, Jennifer, she might have been the instigator and got Andrew to do it. And back in that day, we spanked children. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but we believe there was a
I don't know if you want to put that on the air.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I might get looked up. And
it was very controlled, little taps.
Yeah, that's right.
Little pats.
That's right. You can edit that out. Schwack. All right. So where do we go from here?
Just wanted to get a little bit of the backdrop on how it all began. So that's part one. There's other parts to come. But thanks for taking the time to talk today on my birthday. It's really special. This is memorable.
Yeah, it's
really thankful.
Been a real privilege to have you with us, Amy, in our home and make an emergency trip home from all the way from Ghana, and your lovely husband allowing you to leave and from a holiday that was long time planned, and to care for her father. Right now we're in home care. Nurses coming in day by day, and we're not too sure where the journey leads, one day at a time, and we're so thankful for every day. Thankful for being able to share our story with you out there today. Thanks for listening.